The Broken Visitor. The night was quiet on the edge of the small human colony, a lonely outpost on a dusty moon called Veris 4, where the wind always carried the sound of distant storms. Inside a dim workshop made of metal sheets and old ship panels, a human engineer named Mark worked late as usual. His hands were covered in grease, his tools scattered across the table. He liked fixing things, broken drones, old mechs, scrap engines, but he didn't expect to fix a life that night. The door alarm buzzed weakly, and when he opened it, a shadow fell inside. At first, he thought it was just another scavenger drone begging for a charge, but then he saw small eyes, bright, frightened, and filled with pain. It was a child, but not a human one. Her skin shimmered faint blue under the workshop lights, and her small legs were wrapped in torn metal braces that sparked every time she moved. She stumbled, collapsed on the floor, and looked up at him, whispering something he couldn't understand. Her voice was soft, trembling, mechanical and organic all at once. Mark froze, unsure what to do. Out here, humans rarely met aliens peacefully, but the little one was hurt. Her artificial legs cracked, her feet bleeding a silvery fluid that smelled faintly like ozone. He sighed, knelt beside her, and lifted her carefully onto the workbench. She was light, too light for someone made partly of metal. "It's okay," he said softly, even though she didn't know his words. "I'll fix this." The child looked at him with wide, confused eyes, blinking fast as he reached for his tools. He gently removed the damaged braces, realizing they were not just mechanical. They were part of her body, grown and fused through biometal integration far beyond human technology. Whoever made these was centuries ahead. He worked for hours, soldering wires, adjusting servos, and reshaping the structure. The little one stayed silent, only flinching when the sparks came too close. Sometimes she would point to the old exoparts hanging on his shelves, as if she understood what they were. Mark smiled, shaking his head at how strange this night had become. When he was almost done, the storm outside hit the dome, rumbling like thunder mixed with alien lightning. He checked his old comm screen. No signals, no ships nearby. He was truly alone with her. Finally, the last joint clicked into place and he helped her stand. The exo-legs hummed softly, glowing blue as they synced with her nervous system. She took a hesitant step, then another, and for the first time she smiled. Not a human smile, but one that carried pure gratitude. Mark laughed quietly, relieved. "There you go," he said, wiping his hands. "Good as new." But before he could relax, the radar system on his wall beeped, a deep, pulsing sound that made his heart sink. He walked to the console and saw it. A massive energy signature entering the atmosphere above. Too big to be a patrol craft, too fast for civilian ships. He looked back at the child, who now stood near the door, staring at the sky through the cracked window. Her expression changed. Fear. She whispered a single word in her alien tongue, something sharp and sorrowful, before the entire workshop shook from the sonic boom above. Outside, streaks of red light crossed the clouds. Dropships, military design, not human. Whoever they were looking for her. Mark's instincts screamed to hide her, but he was still processing what was happening. He turned to ask who she was, but she simply looked up at him, tears glimmering on her metallic cheeks, and said in broken English, "Please, don't give me back." That single sentence froze him more than the storm. He didn't know who these aliens were, or why a small child was on the run from them, but one thing he did know: he couldn't hand her over. Not after seeing that fear in her eyes. The ground trembled again. The alien ships were landing, their spotlights cutting through the night. Mark glanced at the child, then at the hidden trapdoor under his workbench. He'd built it years ago in case raiders came. Now it might save them both. "Come on," he whispered urgently, pulling the panel open. "Hide here. Stay quiet." She hesitated, her small hands clutching the side of his jacket, eyes begging for trust. Mark nodded firmly. "I'll keep you safe." As she crawled inside, the storm's roar grew louder, engines and voices echoing outside the workshop. Mark covered the hatch, grabbed his welding torch, and turned toward the door, heart pounding. Knowing the next few minutes could decide both their fates. He didn't know it yet, But the child he just saved wasn't ordinary. And her mother was no common alien. Her mother was the most feared commander in the galaxy. And she was coming. The arrival of the hunt, the sound of engines filled the air, a deep mechanical growl that made the metal walls of Mark's workshop vibrate. The storm outside had turned violent, thunder flashing in waves as ships descended through the clouds. Red searchlights swept across the barren ground, scanning every inch for movement. Mark pressed his back against the wall, his breathing shallow. The child was hidden beneath the floor, safe for now, but only if they didn't tear the place apart. He could already hear the sound of heavy boots crushing the dirt outside. The door burst open with a metallic crash. 3 figures stepped in, tall, armored, and unlike any alien he had ever seen. Their armor was dark and ridged, their helmets shaped like curved blades. Their glowing visors scanned the room in silence. Mark stayed still, holding his welding torch like a weapon. One of the aliens spoke in a deep, distorted voice, words layered with static. He couldn't understand them, but the tone was clear. Anger, impatience, maybe even desperation. The leader stepped closer, pointing to the workbench where the child had been lying minutes ago. Mark's tools were still there, wires scattered, traces of glowing blue fluid marking the table. The alien bent down, touched the residue, and growled something to his companions. Mark's heart pounded. He forced himself to act calm. "You lost something," he said quietly, pretending not to understand their purpose. The alien turned toward him sharply, its glowing eyes fixed on his face. It took a step forward, towering over him. The creature's hand moved fast, grabbing him by the collar and lifting him off the floor like he weighed nothing. Mark gasped, the welding torch falling from his hand. I don't know what you're looking for," he shouted. The alien hissed, voice metallic and cold. "Child!" "Where?" He froze. So they did speak some English, broken but enough. He swallowed hard, forcing a confused expression. "Child. I don't have any kids here, just machines." The alien's grip tightened, claws scratching the edge of his jacket. Mark's lungs burned. Then suddenly, another alien entered the workshop, shouting in their language. The leader dropped him roughly to the floor and turned toward the new arrival. They exchanged rapid, harsh words, voices full of tension. Mark crawled backward quietly, hand reaching under the fallen cloth beside the workbench. He pulled out an old EMP grenade, a leftover from a salvage mission. It wasn't lethal, but it could buy time. He waited for the right second, then pressed the trigger. The grenade pulsed, releasing a blinding blue flash. The lights flickered, sparks flew, and the alien's armor systems screamed with feedback. One fell to a knee, another staggered back, their visors going dark. Mark ran to the trapdoor, yanked it open, and grabbed the child's hand. "We have to go now," he whispered. The girl's eyes widened as she climbed out. The glow from her new exo-legs flickered nervously. Outside, sirens echoed as the rest of the alien troops moved closer. Mark led her through the back exit, pushing aside a pile of scrap that hid his old speeder bike. It hadn't flown in months, but it was their only chance. He jumped on, pulling her close behind him. The engine coughed, sputtered, and roared to life. Lasers streaked across the sky as they shot off into the storm. The alien soldiers recovered quickly, shouting commands into their comms. Red beams chased the fleeing bike through the lightning-lit clouds. Mark gritted his teeth, steering through the chaos, dodging debris and flashes of energy fire. The child clung tightly to his back, whispering something over and over in her language. He risked a glance behind and saw one of the alien ships turn sharply toward them, smaller and faster than the rest. It was hunting them specifically. "Hang on!" he yelled as they raced toward the canyon ahead. They dived into the narrow ravine, speed increasing as the ship's engines howled above. The storm intensified, rain turning into metallic dust. The bike's stabilizers flickered. Suddenly, the child leaned forward, touching the control panel with her glowing fingers. The interface lit up, responding to her touch like it recognized her. Mark looked down in shock as the thrusters shifted power, stabilizing automatically. "What the? How did you do that?" he asked. She looked up at him, fear mixing with guilt. "No, me," she said slowly. "It is. My people's tech." Mark didn't have time to ask more. Behind them, A massive explosion lit up the sky, the alien ship crashing into the canyon wall. He turned sharply, guiding the speeder into a hidden cave at the base of the cliffs. They stopped inside, breathing hard. For a long moment, only the sound of the storm filled the silence. Mark turned to her, eyes narrowed. "You're going to tell me what's going on, kid," he said. She hesitated, then nodded slowly. Her voice was soft, trembling. "My mother, she leads them, but I run. I not want war. I not want to be weapon." Mark froze. The words hit like ice. The child wasn't just someone's daughter. She was the daughter of the enemy commander leading the invasion. Outside, lightning flashed again, revealing the silhouettes of more ships descending. The hunt wasn't over, and now Mark knew who was coming. He looked at the trembling child beside him, then at the storm ahead. Whatever happened next, he wasn't letting her go. The commander's shadow, the storm finally passed, leaving only silence and the soft hum of the speeder cooling inside the cave. Mark sat near the entrance, watching the sky turn from red to gray. The alien child slept beside him, wrapped in his old jacket, her glowing legs dimmed to a soft blue pulse. He hadn't slept at all. Every sound outside made him flinch. Every flicker of light made him think of those soldiers. He kept replaying her words in his head. My mother leads them. Her mother was the commander of that fleet, the one that had sent ships across half the sector, hunting her own child. But why? Mark sighed, rubbing his temples. He'd fixed broken machines all his life, but this was something else. He looked over at the girl again. Even in sleep she seemed tense. Her small hands curled tightly, as if she was ready to run again. Suddenly, the faint static of a transmission crackled from his wristcom. He froze. No one should be able to reach that frequency. "Human engineer," a calm, deep voice said through the static. "You have something that belongs to me." Mark's chest tightened. The voice was female, cold, measured, but powerful. He didn't need to ask who it was. He knew instantly. The child stirred, eyes opening wide. "Mother," she whispered. Mark switched the comm off immediately. "Don't say a word," he whispered. "She can't know where we are." But it was too late. A bright light flashed outside the cave, a scanning beam, wide and sharp, slicing through the canyon walls. Mark grabbed the child's hand and pulled her deeper inside. They ran through the narrow tunnels until they reached an old mining chamber from the colony's early days. Rusted drills, broken lifters, and piles of scrap filled the space. It wasn't much, but it would have to do. Mark crouched near the entrance, pulling out his scanner. Several large energy signatures were approaching fast. Dropships, at least 3. He didn't have long. The child trembled beside him. "She will find me," she whispered. "She always find me." Mark looked at her, voice firm but gentle. "Not this time. You hear me? Not while I'm breathing." She blinked, confused. "Why you help me? You not know me?" He hesitated, then said softly, "Because someone should." A deep rumble shook the ground. The ships landed outside. Dust fell from the ceiling. Then a heavy silence. Mark peeked from behind the wall. The alien commander had arrived. She was tall, wrapped in armor that glowed faintly like molten metal. Her presence filled the air with tension. Around her stood several soldiers, motionless, awaiting orders. "Search the tunnels," she commanded, her voice echoing through the stone. "She is near. Bring her to me alive." Her tone was calm, but her eyes, sharp and glowing gold, showed a strange mix of fury and pain. Mark turned to the child. "We move deeper," he whispered. They crept down a maintenance shaft, crawling through narrow space. The echo of boots and metallic roars grew louder behind them. Suddenly, a small piece of metal clattered from Mark's belt, falling onto the ground. The sound echoed. The commander's head turned instantly. "There!" she shouted. Mark cursed under his breath. They crawled faster, the child's small fingers clutching his arm. Blaster fire exploded behind them, burning through the tunnel walls. Heat seared his back as he slid into another chamber. He looked around quickly, a broken mining lift, hanging by one cable above a dark pit. He turned to the girl. "Hold on tight!" Before she could ask, he cut the cable. The lift dropped, metal screaming as it fell into the abyss. Dust and smoke filled the air. Above, soldiers shouted, their scanners confused by the interference. They landed hard on a lower level. Mark groaned, his leg aching, but he pulled the child up. "You okay?" She nodded weakly. Her glowing legs flickered, but still worked. Far above, the commander stood at the edge of the pit, eyes locked on the smoke below. Her soldiers waited for her command, but she raised a hand. "No," she said slowly. "Let them run. The human cannot protect her forever." Her voice softened for a moment, almost sad. "She will come back to me. My daughter always does." Then she turned away, her cloak sweeping across the stone floor. The ships rose again, vanishing into the storm clouds. Deep below, Mark leaned against the wall, catching his breath. "It looks like we got lucky," he muttered. The child looked up at him, eyes shining with tears. "She not evil. She hurt. My father die in war." "She lose many," Mark nodded slowly. "Maybe, but she's still hunting you," the child whispered. "She want to use me. My blood can control their war machines." Mark's eyes widened. "You mean you're the key to their weapons?" She nodded. That changed everything. He looked at her glowing legs, realizing he hadn't just fixed a child's injuries. He had rebuilt a living weapon, and now the most dangerous commander in the galaxy wanted her back. The hidden human base. The tunnels stretched for miles beneath the rocky surface, carved long ago by human miners before the colony above was abandoned. Mark and the alien child moved carefully through the shadows, their footsteps echoing softly in the damp air. The little one's new exo-legs hummed faintly, their light flickering with each cautious step. They had escaped the commander for now, but Mark knew it wouldn't last. Alien tech like hers could scan entire regions. Sooner or later, they'd find a way to track them again. After an hour of walking, they reached a sealed bulkhead door half buried under debris. Mark brushed off the dust and smiled faintly. The markings on the side were human military, faded but still readable. "H-17 underground outpost. Looks like home," he whispered. He pried the door open with his plasma cutter, sparks lighting the darkness. Inside, stale air rushed out, but beyond it was a hidden bunker long forgotten. Old power cells lined the walls, empty weapon racks stood in neat rows, and cracked monitors blinked with faint light. Mark checked the terminals. "Still some juice left," he said proudly. "Maybe we can make this place work again." The child wandered quietly, touching the walls like they were alive. "Humans build strong," she said softly in broken English, "but lonely." Mark looked at her, surprised by her words. "Yeah," he said. "We build strong because we have to." He spent the next few hours repairing what he could, restoring power, sealing the main doors, and setting up an old radar array. The bunker lights flickered to life one by one, bathing the room in a warm orange glow. The child sat near the table, watching him closely. She was curious about everything, his tools, his movements, even the way he whistled while working. When he handed her a ration bar, she sniffed it first, then smiled shyly before taking a small bite. "Not bad, right?" he chuckled. "Taste like metal," she said, wrinkling her nose. Mark laughed quietly. "You're not wrong." For the first time since the chaos began, there was peace, a small one, fragile but real. Later, when the lights dimmed to night mode, Mark sat near the console, staring at the radar. No ships yet, but he couldn't stop thinking about her mother, the commander who had let them go. It didn't make sense. Someone that powerful could have destroyed them easily. Why didn't she? He was lost in thought when he noticed the child standing at the edge of the room, looking at the sky through the cracked ceiling vent. Her small voice broke the silence. "I not hate her," she said softly. "She love me, but she follow war. She forget peace." Mark turned his chair toward her. "Maybe she just needs a reason to stop." The girl looked down, her glowing eyes reflecting sadness. "You think human can stop her?" He smiled faintly. "We've done worse things, and better things too." Suddenly the radar beeped, a faint signal coming from orbit. Not alien, though. Human code. Mark frowned, adjusting the frequency. Her voice came through, broken but clear enough. "Outpost H-17, this is Captain Reeves of the Dauntless. We picked up alien movement near your sector. Identify yourself." Mark's heart skipped. The Dauntless was one of the Earth Defense Fleet's patrol ships, an old Titan-class carrier still operating this far out. He hadn't heard a friendly voice in years. "This is Engineer Mark Holloway, independent salvager," he replied quickly. "I've got a situation. Possible alien pursuit, non-hostile cargo with me." There was a pause. Then the voice said sharply, "Cargo? Define." Mark glanced at the child. "It's complicated," he muttered. Within minutes, coordinates came through. "Hold position. We're sending a retrieval team." Mark turned to the child. "See, humans don't leave their own behind," he said gently. But she didn't smile. Her expression was full of fear. "No, not safe. My mother see them. She follow human ship." He froze. She was right. If her mother was tracking any signal, then calling the Dauntless had just painted a giant target in the sky. Mark ran to the console, trying to jam the signal, but it was too late. The radar flashed red. Multiple large signatures entered orbit. The commander's fleet had arrived. "Damn it," he whispered. "They found us." The child grabbed his sleeve. "You must go. They want me, not you." He shook his head. "I'm not leaving you. We started this together. We finish it together." Outside, thunder rolled again, but it wasn't the weather this time. It was engines, hundreds of them. The alien fleet was descending toward the human outpost, their lights burning through the clouds like falling stars. Mark looked at the approaching storm, then back at the trembling child beside him. "If they want to fight," he said quietly, "they'll learn what humans do when someone tries to take what we protect." He turned toward the old defense systems on the walls, massive cannons still connected to buried power cores. They hadn't fired in years, but maybe, just maybe, they still had one good shot left. The child's eyes widened. "You fight my mother." Mark gave a half-smile. "I fight anyone who threatens my family." The mother who saw humanity. The sky above Veris 4 turned crimson as the alien fleet descended, their engines roaring like thunder gods across the wasteland. The night lit with trails of fire, and from the hidden outpost, Mark watched the incoming ships on the radar, hundreds of signals forming a circle around his position. Beside him, the alien child stood quietly, her small hands shaking, the glow in her exolegs flickering with each passing second. She looked up at him, her voice soft but heavy. "She is here. My mother comes." Mark nodded slowly. "Then we're out of time," he said, adjusting the controls of the old human defense systems. The bunker hummed to life, ancient machinery waking from its long sleep. Cannons rose from the sand above, their barrels glowing faintly blue. Outside, dust and wind swirled as the first alien ship landed, its massive wings folding with a hiss of steam. Soldiers poured out in formation, weapons drawn. They surrounded the base, their eyes glowing red in the storm. At the center of it all, she arrived. The alien commander, the child's mother. Tall and striking, her armor shining like molten glass, her face hidden behind a mask shaped like a tear. She stepped forward, each motion slow and deliberate, her presence alone silencing her troops. Through the speakers, her voice echoed across the valley. "Calm yet full of power, human engineer," she said. "You have taken what is mine. Surrender the child, and I will spare your world." Mark stood at the console, staring at the radar. He took a deep breath, then pressed the comm switch. "She's not a thing to take," he replied, his voice steady. "She's not a weapon, not a trophy. She's a child, and she deserves better than being hunted like an animal." The commander paused. Even through the static, her silence was heavy. Then she spoke again, slower this time. "You know nothing of what she is." Mark's eyes narrowed. "I know enough," he said. "I know she trusts me. And that's something you lost when you turned her world into a battlefield." The soldiers moved forward, aiming their weapons, but the commander raised her hand, stopping them. "You think you can protect her?" she asked. Mark smirked faintly. "I don't think. I will." He slammed his hand on the control pad, and the old human cannons roared to life, blue plasma fire lighting up the night. Explosions tore through the sand as alien ships veered off course. Alarms echoed across the valley. The soldiers scattered as the ground itself trembled. Mark's voice came through the speakers. "You came to a human world, thinking we'd bow. But you forgot who we are. We fix what's broken. We protect what we love, and when you come for one of ours, we fight back." The commander's visor glowed fiercely. "Enough," she shouted, raising her arm. Her troops unleashed a wave of plasma fire at the bunker. Shaking its walls, Mark ducked as debris rained from the ceiling. Sparks flying from the consoles, the child screamed, "Stop! Please stop!" Her voice echoed with strange energy, her exo-legs glowing brighter, brighter than before, until they shone like twin stars. She ran to the center of the room, her eyes filled with tears. Outside, the commander froze, feeling the surge of energy. The sky cracked open with blue light as the girl's legs released a pulse. A massive electromagnetic wave that spread in every direction, knocking ships from the air, silencing weapons. Freezing every system around the base, the storm fell silent. The world turned still. Mark shielded his face as the light faded. When he opened his eyes, the girl was on the floor unconscious, her legs smoking gently but intact. Outside, the alien commander fell to her knees, stunned. Around her, every weapon was dead, every soldier motionless. She removed her mask, revealing eyes of silver, eyes full of pain. "My child," she whispered, stepping forward slowly. Mark carried the girl outside, his clothes burned, his arm bleeding. But he didn't stop. "She's alive," he said firmly. Standing between the commander and the child, the alien mother stopped a few feet away. She looked at the small form in his arms, tears forming at the corners of her eyes. "You fixed her," she whispered, her voice trembling for the first time. "You gave her what I could not." Mark nodded. "I just built legs," he said, "but she learned how to walk on her own." The commander lowered her gaze, silent for a long moment. Then she looked back up, her voice quiet. "You could have sold her to my enemies, or hidden her forever. Why didn't you?" Mark sighed. "Because humans don't trade lives," he said simply. "We saved them!" The alien mother stared at him, and for the first time, something changed in her eyes. The anger faded, replaced by something unfamiliar, something fragile. She stepped closer, gently placing her hand on her daughter's forehead, whispering words in her own language. A soft hum of sorrow and love. The child stirred, opening her eyes weakly. "Mother, no fight," she whispered. "Please." The commander looked at Mark, then at the fleet still hovering above, powerless but waiting. She took a deep breath and raised her hand, giving a command in her language. "All units stand down one by one." The ships pulled away, disappearing into the storm clouds, leaving only silence behind. Mark stood there, exhausted but relieved. The commander turned to him one last time. "You have shown me what strength truly is," she said softly. "Not in war, but in care." He nodded, a faint smile crossing his face. "Take her home, not as your weapon, as your daughter." The commander bowed her head slightly, a gesture of respect, rare and ancient. "Human," she said quietly. "You're kind. You are dangerous, but not for the reasons we feared." And as her ship rose into the clouds, carrying the child with her, Mark watched from the bunker's entrance, the storm finally clearing to reveal the stars above. He smiled faintly, whispering to himself, "Sometimes fixing one broken thing changes everything." And far beyond that moon, somewhere deep in the galaxy, the story of a human who built exo-legs for an alien child began to spread, a story that made even the coldest hearts wonder if humanity's greatest weapon had always been compassion.